For progress to be made for queer representation in the media on screen, progress has to be made in the writing rooms, in production, and in every aspect behind the scenes as well. Meet Savannah Ward, a TV writer in the industry who has worked on many projects, including Cruel Summer, a 2021 TV series available to stream on Hulu, with the second season coming soon. As a trans person of color, Ward said that writing an episode for Cruel Summer Season 1 was an amazing experience, and even beyond amazing experience, to have fans reach out to them on Twitter to tell them how much the episode meant to them. What's it like to be a queer person in the television industry, and what are some difficulties they face? Let's take a peek behind the scenes of LGBTQ+ representation as we take a look at Pride on Screen.
I've been fortunate enough where there's been queer characters on, I believe, every show. Yes, every show that I've worked on so far. And that is always, I feel great about that because I know that I think I can count on my hand how many references I had growing up for people that looked like me and had the same sexuality as me.
Ward shared that they are adopted and grew up with 2 gay dads, along with being socially raised as a girl. So for them, they had little representation to look up to in the media.
The first time I saw my family reflected on screen was Interview with the Vampire, and that was like 2 vampires and their monster daughter, but that was the only representation that I had growing up for my family. And so to grow up thinking that my family are monsters in some way, it definitely puts an impact on a child's perspective and even into my adult perspective.
Being able to see yourself on screen can show you that you matter, Ward said, even if people are telling you otherwise.
I think seeing yourself on screen in whatever capacity, whether it's a person that shares the same race identity, gender identity, sexuality, or even like the same mental illness as you, that can be really affirming of your own experience.
Ward said that they feel that the difficulty is in the politics behind the scenes when it comes to LGBTQ+ representation in the media. They said that they rarely find that the problem is about the writing on the page.
I'm always working for someone else's vision. And so I have to keep that in mind when I'm pitching things for queer characters. So even though I probably am the expert in the room, it doesn't mean that I can just completely big swing and change a storyline or really, or if there's a problem with a character that I think could be offensive, I can't just be like, this is offensive, we're not doing it. I have to bring it up in a way where it is a collaborative discussion and I can, highlight, hey, I think we're walking into dangerous waters here and these are the reasons why. But that doesn't always mean that we're not going to do that story. Just because I'm in the queer community, I'm very I feel like I'm comfortable with sexuality, not just in who I date or who others date, but actual sexuality. And so I'm very much asked sometimes to pitch on more raunchy or crass topics. And it's just about knowing your lane and what you're good at and trying to synthesize that into what the room needs or what the characters needs. And all in all, you're always working to service character. And sometimes, even if you feel very strongly about a certain way a character should be, they can be something else and it's not going to damage the character forever.
Ward pointed out that the emergence of successive shows such as Pose, A League of Their Own, and the most recent season of RuPaul's Drag Race is in service of seeing the queer community reflected and gives a sense that we matter in this country and in the media.
I also think, though, that possibly some of the political backlash we're feeling is because of all the sort of influx of more queer representation. But I also say that to just say, the reason why we're probably facing backlash is because we've already won. We've already made an edge up into being seen, being heard, and being taken seriously. And that's a threat to a lot of people for whatever reason.
Ward also stated that they feel like there is a wealth of diversity of characters, not just limited to sexuality and gender.
There are queer disabled characters, there's queer veteran characters, there's elder trans characters, there are people the queer community is getting a breath of full life of characters now. And I think that is really, really great.
However, Ward said that they are really concerned about the behind-the-scenes representation. For shows like Pose, A League of Their Own, and Our Flag Means Death, showrunners are usually white, hegemonic, cisgendered men.
That means that these people that are in charge of our stories are not exactly us. And that to me is the huge problem. And it's the struggle that I have already discussed in rooms of, sometimes I have to really be careful about what I'm fighting for certain characters because it's not my show. There is an imbalance currently of representation where there are actually, I think we are doing good in characters, but the people who are in charge of that characters we are completely underrepresented. And I think we're even more so getting cut out more than I've seen before.
Take, for example, Netflix's new show Beef, starring Steven Yeun and Ali Wong. The cast primarily features Asian Americans, both on screen and behind the scenes.
As a Black queer trans person, obviously I was not the audience for that show, but I loved every second of it because it felt so real. The characters felt lived in and everything felt genuine and authentic. And that's what you get when you let people write their own stories and you give them money and power to write their own stories. I think that's happening in this sort of like race realm where I think, Lovecraft Country had a almost fully Black realm. So I feel like, and Insecure had an almost fully Black room as well. And so I feel like in that way, in that sort of ism, we're breaking through, but I feel like for queer stories, there's still sort of a lot of straight and cis shepherding those stories.
Ward was credited as a writer for Cruel Summer, Season 1, Episode 7, and staff writer on 2 other episodes as well. They also worked on Season 2 and said that the writer's room for both seasons included multiple queer people. The creator, Bert V. Royal, is also a gay man.
So there was sort of this really comfortability that I felt throughout the show because the show's tone has a little bit of a campiness, which in my sort of opinion, the gays know how to do that best. So I very much, was able to be myself behind the scenes in that room. In Season 1, we did have a queer storyline that sort of unfolded. And that was very positive in the writer's room experience. We all were really pushing for that. We did get pushback from our studio and network producers of, we don't understand this. We don't understand, they haven't been canoodling. How do they like each other? There is always going to be pushback. And it's all about learning when to push back on the pushback and fight for what's important to the character. And we felt that for the character Kate, this was important. And we all felt this was right for her character. So we pushed back and we succeeded.
As a queer writer in the industry, Ward said that seeing someone you can relate to in media can be reaffirming of your own experience. As we have explored LGBTQ+ representation in films and TV shows, it's important to remember that representation also has to be upheld behind the scenes too. Queer characters and stories feel more authentic and real when those who experience it get to write, produce, and share their own dreams.
Now I can, look at so many different examples across this industry, and I feel like it just gives me hope, and it also inspires me to make these characters fresh and develop voices that we probably haven't seen before. It's more of just an exciting experience for me to get to play with people that I feel like I know.